Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah ta'ala wa barakatuhu. Welcome to another episode of It Takes Two, where we look into the challenges that naturally occur in marriage and try to help viewers find more meaningful and solution-focused ways of living happily in their marriages. I have, as always, my co-host, Sister Ruby Soa. Assalamu alaikum, sister.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
And to my right, I have Sayyid Fadil Bahl Aloom. Assalamu alaikum, Sayyid.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Pleasure for us to have you here today.
Thank you.
I'm really looking forward to this show. I'd like to just make best use of time, jump straight into the first letter. And it's quite a long one and quite a deep one, so I'll see what you both think about this after we can discuss it. It reads, There It Takes Two. I married my husband just after university. It was a love marriage, and we had the same visions and goals in almost everything. Alhamdulillah, we have a good life. However, everything on paper is good. We take nice holidays, have a nice home, beautiful children. However, I feel religion is ruining our marriage. Since my husband has hit 40, he no longer wants to go to work. He wants to stay at home in zikr and pray, waiting for the death. Everything is changing fast. Even the paintings that we had on the wall have been removed and replaced with Islamic art. They were just paintings with no images on them. Even going to see the children in a school play initiates an argument. My daughter goes to a Catholic school, which we both decided because it was one of the best schools in the area, not because they follow a particular doctrine, but because of its standards and locality. Now he wants to pull her out of the school. Of course, the boys are now treated differently, and even discussing our daughter's future, he wants to marry her off to someone from his parents' country. I don't recognize this man, and it's causing huge problems. You don't know what you are going to walk into when you get home. Once a friendly, loving home has now become a prison. This unfortunate letter is from a anonymous viewer in the UK. Sister Ruby, there's so much in there, but what are the first things that come to mind when you hear the facts of this letter?
I feel really sad for the sister. I feel that this is unfortunately a common thing in the community, and it's unfortunate. I don't know what has happened to the brother. She hasn't said. Sometimes when a circumstance, a situation happens in life, for example, if you witness an accident, it can prompt you to become more religious, or you get some bad news, or you see something, it changes something in you and makes you behave in a way that you weren't before. What I think is, and this is what happens a lot, I think with sisters as well, that they interpret religion as almost stopping life. Don't live, just read, pray, do zikr, whatever else. And they forget about what is important also, which is their families and their responsibilities to their wife, their children, their community, etc. What I'm feeling from the sister is that she sounds desperate. She sounds like she's at her wit's end, and
Sounds hard.
it sounds very hard, and it's affecting the children. So I'm possibly going to ask the Sayyid what his thoughts are, because I don't know if this is something common. I think it is, but you would have more experience.
See, it sounds like religion has become so narrow, because she uses the euphemism. It's like living in a prison. So this husband changing and becoming so strict, puritanical, narrow. What's your thoughts?
The problem is a typical problem. We've been hearing these problems since a long time ago. I do remember first case was when I was a child. It was one of my mother's friends. They both were not that religious, and then she became very religious, and then he divorced her, and so on and so forth. And it's happened either at some stage the husband become so religious, or one of the partner, one of the either husband or the wife, and at some stages both parents become so religious, and then the children notice the change, and the children or one of the children say not religious, and all of it end up with series of problems. The answer is can't really have black and white in these cases, and it's a long term. There is a long term solution. But I think in the program we can talk about bits and pieces, and then hopefully in the future we can, or if she can, try to put the bits and pieces together. There is, the solution needs a lot of patience from her, and after persuading the husband from him. Marriage is like a company, it's like a project. Both husband and wife should work hard to keep it as successful as possible for the sake of the children and themselves and the family in general. This is a very important concept which both husband and wife should understand, and most of us should understand. Because if marriage become like piece of cake or happiness or honeymoon, doesn't exist. Let's be frank with ourselves. Marriage means sacrifice, means struggle, means work together, means happiness, means sadness.
So sometimes down, sometimes up and sometimes down.
So she should stay as patient as she can, try to get things changed. He himself, he needs someone to talk to him. I don't think she will be the only person. They need an external advice at some stages, although keeping privacy is the most important thing. So he should understand that religious is not like living in a prison, and he should become easier, because from what I understand from the letter, that it seems like they weren't that religious, and he became so religious very strict, if I'm not mistaken, by her saying that he removed the pictures and the things. So he also need to understand that there were things they agreed about before, and you can't have an abrupt change all of a sudden. Everything should get changed, and they need to reach a solution rather than giving up. And if any of the partners feel like the house become a prison, they need to work hard to change it into a happy house rather than giving up and run away from it.
I think what the sister is possibly also feeling is very alone in the marriage, because what I'm assuming from the letter is he's busy spiritually, focusing on what he needs to do, but he's neglecting everything else. So that's what I'm concerned about. I'm also concerned about, as the Sayyid has also mentioned, she mentioned art, that it didn't have any images on there.
Yeah, no images, she said anyway, but he's changed it for like calligraphy.
Exactly. And this is a problem when, as the Sayyid said, when you don't progress together on time, that it causes problems because one side cannot catch up or doesn't want to. And the poor children, she mentioned, they go to a Catholic school not because it's Catholic, but it's the best one in the area, and now he wants to pull them out. So think of how confused the children must be suddenly. What's happened to our parents?
He reached 40 and it's almost like an abrupt change. He's waiting for the death. He just wants to do zikr. He didn't say he doesn't work anymore, but
he doesn't want to go to work.
He doesn't want to go to work. He's absorbed. Is that actually correct? Even his methodology. She's describing him as being religious, but you know, we're all aspiring to become more Islamic. But is even his methodology is that questionable? Almost like.
I mean, it sounds like he's being depressed, or these are symptoms of depression. Although I'm not a psychologist myself, but for a man not willing to go to and waiting for death. Religion hasn't asked us to wait for death. Religion always encourages us to live our life and getting prepared for death, because life and death, they both are ni'mah from Allah, and both of them requires work and things from us. So I think we need a diagnosis of what happened, whether, as you just mentioned, it was a shock, a reaction. There is something there. Although we are maybe asking for some kind of impossible scenario, she needs to be so patient. So if she can get help from someone to enable her to be able to do more and more. And
Would it be best? Sorry to cut you, but would it be best if that person is like a religious scholar, so that because he seems he would take more advice from somebody
yes,
senior
I
in
think they
religion?
need help by a scholar, a therapist, a family therapist, older member of the family, someone like that. And they both need to work. He needs to work, but unless there is a good diagnosis of his case, because if he had a semi, I wouldn't call it depression, but whatever, then he wouldn't listen. I think
Yes,
you know
I
better
understand.
that he will become like, stubborn, the
Yeah.
person with these kind of symptoms. So they need to correct this they need to resolve or to deal with the problem itself in order to enable him that, first of all, he needs to confess that he's doing something, he has something. This is, I'm sure you know better, and she would be able to, if she seek the right help, to know more. That doesn't mean that she leave him alone. And something very important sister mentioned, they are not alone in this scenario. So many partners are. So we've got like people when one of the partners convert to Islam or from one school of thought to another, or when, for instance, sometimes the gentleman get a job, and now we're having so much of those problems when he gets a job abroad. She's not willing to be with him, or vice versa. These kind of things should both be agreed and accepted by both partners, the husband and wife, and they need to, both of them, to be willing to get a solution.
I would also say before they got married, because she said I think they met in university or got married in university, I don't know. But when you're, before you get married, you should have these discussions of,
She spoke about shared vision. She mentioned these
what
shared
happens
vision.
in life where the communication has broken down for whatever reason. And I think she sounds really angry. She's probably very frustrated because she doesn't recognize who this person is.
He's a stranger. He's changed their environment. She also mentions, in the sense, what sounds like he's emotionally withdrawn. It doesn't, as much as she's saying he's become religious. He doesn't say he sounds loving. I get a sense of coldness, a sense of distance, almost like his religiosity has been manifested in strict adherence to rules and regulations, but the spirit of Islam doesn't seem.
I think that's what happens a lot, and the Sayyid can elaborate. A lot of the time people think for some reason the more religious you have to be, the more alone you have to be, the more you have to not engage with people. I don't know where this comes from. Where does it say that you have to behave this way, that you have to be alone and struggling? And but a lot of people interpret it that way for some reason. I don't know why.
Say, does a brother maybe also need some advice in that regard? Because I was thinking about the saying of the Prophet, peace be upon him, where it says, "The best of you is those who are best to their wives, and I'm best to my wife." So he's been, in a way, he's not being good to his wife. So he's following rules and regulations in one sense, but he doesn't sound very kind to his wife.
You're right. The best sadaqah is to give charity to the wife and the children. We have so many riwayat and hadith, and to be nice with them and to talk with them nicely. But I think the gentleman needs help. This is first. Second, we are talking from an angle, and things shouldn't be. I mean, if the lady is listening, we also, or whoever trying to help, should listen to the husband, because there might be some kind of misunderstanding. The best thing I can tell that she's not the only one. Because once you feel that you are part of a group of people who suffer from a problem, then that give you probably more courage and momentum to.
She's not alone.
She's not alone in this, and this is what marriage is for. And living together is a sacrifice, especially when they have children, especially if they live abroad. If they are here, life has got so many problems. Both husband and wife should work to bring wherever. So these things directly affecting them. But religiously, there isn't such a thing that we should wait for death and we should stay at home. لا رهبانية في الإسلام. I mean, always Islam encourages us to work, to do this, and work is the best ibadah, the best worship, especially for the father. Earning money is like the best jihad, the best kind of amal salih, the best sadaqah when he gives money to the wife, to the atfal, to the children. I think there is a big misunderstanding happening. which should be resolved. But I think if everything as she's been explaining, he might need some kind of help.
I would agree. I would say there's definitely something that's made him do a 360 and
360.
completely change who and what he is.
Yeah, like a midlife. Well, it's 40. Like sounds like a midlife crisis almost.
It,
I was going to say so. Yeah.
it could be.
Yeah, because 40 and leaving work or not willing to do is something serious happening. Because usually people run away from home and probably try to go to work. If he's escaping from work, it sounds that there's something wrong happening. There's a big thing.
Also, she mentioned something about they have a daughter and that he would like the daughter to marry someone from his parents' country.
Yeah.
So that tells me maybe they're both from different
The boys and the girls are
cultures.
being treated differently. I don't know to infer.
Maybe it's a cultural thing, or he's interpreting Islam in a certain way. But maybe cultural problem.
You're right. This is something which you notice, and this is something he is the person to be blamed, because once someone marry someone not from his culture, he should be well prepared to always to listen and to
accommodate.
Exactly.
So be open.
Exactly, Ahsanto. If he's that, I wouldn't like to say narrow-minded and like to stay to his culture, he shouldn't have married someone from different community, because that means he's opening a kind of endless debate. So yeah, I think this is one of the things. And being from different cultures, that probably needs extra help and extra work. It's not straightforward. I think it's a bit complicated, but easy to be dealt with. And it's possible that someone can help them.
So what would we say in summary? What it would be the sister's first, maybe like a bullet point of the few things that she can do to maybe start solving the problem. Where would she start?
I think they need an advice from a religious person,
Okay.
or highly respected within the family, whether a lady in the family or whatever. They need a medical also advice, because I'm having a strong doubt that he had some kind of beginning of kind of depression.
So maybe an assessment from a GP or something.
Because unless this is dealt with, he won't listen to her. And if he doesn't listen, that means they won't be able to communicate. And this is the biggest problem.
Because he's just turned inwards and he could become very angry.
Yeah. And
But
left
it's a
work
shame.
and doesn't want to go on to work. This is very serious, something serious happening. Staying at home, waiting for death.
Yeah,
It's
it's
clearly
strong
depression.
language.
Yeah, it sounds very sad. Inshallah, Allah give them success in going forward.
And I can guarantee them that they will go back together and live happily. It happened. More serious problems than that has been resolved. Once the the husband and wife has got children, they can do a lot for the sake of the
children.
And Allah will help. Always Allah helps those who are willing to help. So they need to help themselves to work together in order to get the problem resolved.
I agree, inshallah.
Just a quick question, Said. It is related to the letter, but it's almost like a slightly digressing. Is it a common misunderstanding regarding marriage? Like, I just noticed that he spoke about she emphasized he wants our daughter to marry somebody from his parents' background, but he doesn't have the same stipulation for his sons. Is this a correct type of thing?
Yeah, he shouldn't. Same treatment to the daughter and to the son. In Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always, when he talks, Zani was Zani. To tell lies is the same punishment, whether you are a man or a woman. To do any kind of sin is the same. So he should deal and treat them the same, especially if he lives in a Western country. He needs to respect and understand the Western culture. By saying that we can't deny that it makes slight difference sometimes to the father's mentality. Let's be frank. And this is the Middle Eastern or Asian mentality, that because they all the children the name belong to the father, so they are willing to keep the name. Same to the community they came from. If the daughter is getting married to a German, the grandchildren will be German. But if the son is married to a German girl, the grandson stay Arabs or whatever,
Yes.
which doesn't make sense as such, but there is such a thing. We can't deny the fact that there isn't such a, there is such a mentality. We need to know how to deal with it. But he has no right to think that way, because if, which sounds like if he got married to someone from a different community or race or country, then he should expect and agree that this is going to happen, unless if he has told her at the beginning that we do that, but I'm not going to allow my daughter to do that, and I highly doubted that she agreed. And at the end of the day, it's her decision.
It sounds like he was so open at the beginning.
Yeah,
and
at the end of the day, it's the children's decision. Although, and by saying that, that doesn't mean the child is Islamically, especially the daughter, first marriage, they should consult and they should get the permission of the father. But if the father disagrees and he has no good reason, they have the right to do something against his wish. So everything has got is a negative and positive, and it's a very wide debatable issue. There is something wrong going on. There is a big lack of communication between them. And the problem, once there is a problem, each side he can't see things the way it should be seen. But one thing I would like to mention, and probably that may encourage either of them, once people getting married, they need to know that the life and the thing is not only belong to them, it's the children. So she needs to understand that whatever hard work and suffering, anything she's doing is for the sake of the children. That will give her some peace of mind, because you know, when you do something and you feel that you are doing it for the sake of your child, you know, everyone saving money and trying to minimize the mortgage for the sake of children. The best thing for the children is to grow up in a mother and a father house.
Is it fair if she feels oppressed, because it sounds oppressive? She said prison, so prison to me is oppression. So she's being oppressed. Doesn't Allah forbid oppression? Because the man doesn't want to work, he wants to die. And
if he stays at home, he will make her life hell. I can tell you that, because when the man stays, they always mourn together. So it is. But from our side, we need to minimize the possibilities of talaq, divorce, abghad al-halal. Not only as a scholar, but because of me being with so many families trying to resolve family problems. The worst thing for the child to lose one of the parent through divorce or through whatever, and the experience itself is not healthy. We are trying to minimize this separation and encourage, because it's not easy. I know that if she's saying that I'm going to a prison, how would we encourage or minimize the torturing of a prison? By getting her to know that she's doing something for the children and it's worth it, providing that there is a progress, not endless prison. So it doesn't have to be a death sentence or endless whatever. Life sentence. It should be like a year or two or whatever. This all depends. They need to watch each other, whoever is thinking. If there is a small progress, okay, let's work on that progress. What did we do for that progress? And that's why I think they need a therapist advice.
Also, if the shoe was on the other foot and it was the female who wasn't doing her Islamic duty, she couldn't be bothered to do the children, whatever, get them ready, would we not be more hard on the female and say, oh, she's not being a good wife? Look at all these examples of women we have. Are we giving the brother an excuse to behave this way? Why aren't we being more, not aggressive, but more assertive in pushing the brother to make a change, even if he is suffering depression? But why aren't we saying to him, you are not doing your Islamic duty?
He needs to hear that, but it's very difficult. I'm inferring that it's going to be difficult for her to say that to him, and that's why it may require her to gently work with him to get him to get a third party involved, be that a sheikh or somebody, somebody very knowledgeable that may be influential.
But my point is, a lot of the time the onus is on the sisters to be patient, be patient, be patient. But if it was a sister in the reverse role, would we be saying the same thing?
Interesting question.
Well, religiously, same thing will be said, but within a different extent. How? Quran says, من أنفسكم أزواجا لتسكنوا إليها. The wife is the source of second. Second is peace.
Yeah.
So the wife, the mother,
sakina,
is the
sakina,
source of peace, sakina, which is even better than peace. Something I don't know what's the equivalent in English to it. So this is number one. By saying that, that doesn't mean that the father is the center of noise and trouble and shout. No, that doesn't justify. But because the peace comes from the number one. Number two, before marriage, I know it sounds unfair, but before marriage, it's mainly the husband's responsibility to try to persuade the wife. Unfortunately, after marriage, the responsibility is for both of them, but sometimes might looks like it's more on the wife, on specific period, not for good. Number three, when we mention a religious advice and a therapist advice, we need to be very careful that someone who understands the culture of both partners.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately here when they seek a family therapist advice, they come from different background, different to the background of their partners. And when the partners doesn't understand quite well, then there is a problem. And usually when we have a marital problem or any kind of problem, I mean, I've been saying that to so many partners when they come and say that we need to have, it's like a mathematical equation or a problem. You always need to, or even when we have someone who is ill, either you treat him with remedies or with medical or with operation. You have to have one standard of measures, not to mix up the thing. So either both of them try to resolve the problem from the Western or the civil point of view or aspect, or Islamic. They need to agree on something. Just to simplify and to enable everyone to understand. Like here, the law states that when they got divorced, half of it to this and the other half to the other one. Islamically, it's a bit different. But Islamically, she should do that and he should do that. Usually the wives or the husbands, they want the right of the Western society and the right of the Islamic, and they can't have both.
That's so true. You want your cake and to eat it.
Cake and eat it too.
Exactly.
Inshallah, it works out for them. But we're going to stop for a brief break, and we hope to see you on the other side. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to the part two. We're going to jump straight into the next scenario and explore this very, very, very intriguing letter. It reads, There it takes two. Is it un-Islamic to keep secrets from my future husband? If I tell a lie or not disclose information concerning myself and my past, does this nullify my marriage? I have read that if you lie to your future spouse about certain things when entering into a marriage, then this can make the marriage void. When I was 12, I was sexually assaulted. I feel that if I disclose this information to potential suitors, then it could hinder my reputation and deem me unsuitable as a wife. Very heartfelt letter there. Sister Ruby, what's your first things that come to mind?
My heart goes out to the sister. She's gone through some traumas upon her. But inshallah, she's got a whole future ahead of her, which looks promising. I'm not a scholar, so I cannot give the Islamic perspective on what the ruling would be. But I can give one of an emotional perspective. And that is that I would personally, this is my own opinion, I would not reveal that incident that happened, not because it's shameful or anything.
She hasn't done anything wrong.
But she hasn't done anything wrong.
To be ashamed of.
And with these situations, they're so delicate that it can sometimes cause problems for the other partner. You don't know what cultural background the person is from, you don't know how it will be interpreted, etc. For me, I don't see it as lying because you haven't said a lie. You're keeping something traumatic that happened discreet. Now, in the relationship, if she should have problems or she has some traumatic flashbacks or whatever, then I think she should discuss it with her husband so they can work on it together. But it's not something that has damaged her character. It is not something that she should walk around feeling ashamed about.
Definitely not. Yeah.
And I don't think what has happened to her, through no fault of her own, should have any impact on her future. And I don't know what type of person she's marrying. Maybe he's very open-minded and educated and knows about these situations, or he might be from a particular background where they don't know about these things, and they may even have a negative attitude about it, that you're spoiled goods or something. But I think, you know, again, I think she needs to maybe have some counselling and discuss whether maybe she wants to talk about it but feels that she doesn't know how he's going to interpret it.
She, just to jump in, she mentions that in a kind of context that she wonders if it would hinder her in terms of marriage for potential suitors. I'm not sure if she has a specific person in mind, or is it if I meet somebody to talk about marriage who may be interested, every time I'm meeting new people, so is this going to be something that I have to disclose? So that means more people need to know who may not be.
I would say no.
Interested.
I would
so
say
that's
no.
very complicated.
Exactly.
And maybe quite unnecessary.
Well, why would you
we'll
want to tell
out.
everybody? Decide on, inshallah, who you're going to marry, and if you feel that's something you want to disclose, then disclose it. If it's not, then don't, because, you know, we could possibly think, well, what is the psychological ramifications? This might affect her marriage, but it might not. But that's my opinion. If she feels that she doesn't want to disclose that, I feel that she doesn't have to. It's not lying, you've just not addressed the issue. If it comes about in the relationship, then she can, and she feels secure in her marriage, she can discuss it with her husband and they can move forward. But I don't think it's a game changer, like when they're doing the contract, she must state what happened to her. And I don't think so, but the scholar knows best.
Let me just bring a statement. Just to ask you, legally, is it wajib, is it mandatory for her to disclose this because somebody's interested in marrying her? Is that in itself a lie if she doesn't tell them? I just want to clear that up from
in general,
fiqh point of view.
telling the truth is not wajib. Without talking about marriage or contract, but in general, lying is haram, but telling the truth is not wajib. When it gets into marriage or to any contract, each partner should know few things about, or each part should know something about the other, depending on what they are agreeing on. Like if I agree to do such and such work, you need to know my qualification, I need to know the kind of work. In marriage also there are some kind of things each of them should know about each other. Like for instance, I do remember one of the Ayatollahs, one of the big scholars in Najaf, his daughter had a problem with, and I remember two cases, but her daughter has one problem with one of her ear. So when a guy proposed to her, he told him, because religiously he should know. In this case, if her body is not affected in a way that he, the husband, the future husband, should have known, then she should use her common sense or judgment to see whether he, as the sister says, whether he came from a culture which can understand, whether religiously he is up to that standard, because even religiously is so good for one of the partners to keep secrets and try to, do what we call sitter in Islam and in Arabic, to not to cover but try to not to open the problems and try to disclose it as much as he can. So it's good for him to do so, but would he mature? Is he mature enough to understand the size of the issue? I do remember also from a story being told from the old scholars and members of the family about our great grandfather, Allama Bahr al-Ulum. Before he slept, it's a long story, I will cut it short. He asked Allah, Ya Rabbi, I want to know someone from heaven. And for 3 nights, he's been told such and such name in Hilla is, his name is Jasim, such and such, he is from Al-Jannah. He couldn't have believed it because he thought that someone will tell him Sheikh Mufid, Sheikh Tusi, whatever. 3rd day, Sayyid Bahr al-Ulum goes every year, once to Hamza al-Sharqi and once to Hamza al-Gharbi. He visits the sons of the Imams, and one of them is next to Hilla. And usually he goes with his students, a big group of ulama. When they reach Hilla, he usually stayed with the Qazwini family because his sister is married to the Qazwini. This time he said, I want to stay in Jasim's house. Everyone was astonished and surprised because the guy wasn't well known of being have a good reputation. And cutting the story short, the Sayyid asked him before he slept, what have you done? He said, I haven't done anything in my life. He wasn't religious. The 3rd day or the 2nd day, he said, I do remember my parents wanted me to get married to so-and-so. And just before marriage, I realized that she wasn't a virgin. Someone probably abused her. And we stayed together because on those days she would have been killed. And this is all. And then Sayyid said, this is probably why you became one of Ahl Jannah, people of heaven. And then the guy stopped doing what he used to be doing, and he went to Sayyid and became a student in the house. This story probably reflects the importance of these kind of action. It's very important that we need. In fact, just before I came in, I had people in my office talking about a scholar who has done a mistake or something, as they've been telling me. And then we had a disagreement because I told them that we are all not infallible. We all at some stage make mistakes. So we should contain and try to keep the secrets and the mistakes. And for each problem, there is a solution. But providing that she knows him well, whether he understands, and clearly she has got the right to get married. If she thinks that that will stop him, she then need to do so. At the same time, she need to understand or to think about the future. If at some stage he will or he would discover that, would that affect the marriage, would that affect the children? All of these things should be thought about.
What about in some Muslim cultures, the idea of virginity is a very big thing for a woman being married for the first time. I would consider her as such because of what she's disclosed. She hasn't disclosed anything other than that. But some people may not perceive her stuff a lot as a virgin. What would you say about what would you say about that?
It's not only Muslim. Originally, everyone used to think that way. Even nowadays, I think most of people in the world, apart from the West, when it becomes familiar or it doesn't become an issue. Otherwise, it is an important issue depending on where they come from. But as I said, it all depends on the way of thinking, the background, why this happened, whether she is lying. It's different that if someone lost the virginity because she was sleeping with few people and she is lying to the husband. But this is different from she's been attacked or sexually abused or raped or all of that is different. So we can't really say something just because of the issue of virginity. I think the sister was thinking.
I was going to say the same thing. And this wasn't a conscious decision that she made. She hasn't inflicted anything on herself. So in the eyes of Allah, I'm sure Allah is merciful and would classify her as who she was meant to be before the incident. But we can't speak on behalf of Allah. But that would just be my opinion. Also, what I was going to say is that it's not like the sister has alopecia, which is a condition where you don't have hair, and you're about to get married. That's something that you would have to disclose to your husband, that you have a physical issue.
Complex, yeah.
This is something that happened to her that was traumatic, and she had which might not have an effect on the marriage in a negative sense. I think in that case, she can decide not to disclose it. But if an issue arises later in the marriage, and as this Sayed said, depending on his culture, his maturity, his understanding, then she may need to address it. But maybe she needs to bring someone who she trusts to disclose that information to him. Because for some males, it can be very traumatic, especially in the cultural environment. They feel that, sorry, but somebody else has taken something that belonged to them, and their egos get sometimes a bit brash. But again, you need the maturity and understanding to...
But sorry for interrupting. Religiously, we need to make that clear. For the husband and the wife, before the contract, the marriage contract is recited, they need to know about few things about each other. I mean, if the husband is going to get married to ex-lady on the basis that she is virgin and she is not virgin, that might make things different. So she...
So according to, all right, and so on a level of fiqh, would a woman who's been attacked against her will as a young woman or as a child, something like that, would she, from a fiqh point of view, be considered a virgin if she'd been inappropriately attacked?
No, a virgin is a virgin. I mean, if she's been attacked and she lost her virginity, then, but they can probably explain to the husband. I know it's very difficult, but I'm trying just theoretically. I'm just trying to getting the thing from the books. She need to be, they both, because he may later on, if he discovered that she is not virgin, he may pull out and say, we got married on the basis that she is virgin. I had a couple who got divorced. One of the reasons the husband said that I thought that she is virgin, and she told me that she is virgin and she is not virgin. I'm sure there is a way of persuading him, explaining it to him. Especially, it seems like both of them, they live in a modern country, in a Western country. So the problem is not that serious. And she hasn't been mentioned virginity or something. So there are so many things we can't. But this is something she needs, or she should have thought about, or she should think about before she take a decision. Something, because sometimes I know there are hard decisions and hard circumstances, but we need to know what's going on.
She needs to explore, I agree, explore her feelings and her options.
I think you mentioned something really important when you said she has to use almost, well, these are my words, her wisdom, but common sense, because some men do not have the emotional or the intellectual capacity to deal with that, and they would just not cope with that. Then it's probably best that she doesn't pursue a relationship or marriage with this kind of person.
And his background is also very important. I mean, she wouldn't have probably expected herself to be married to someone who came from, I mean, the
Eastern country.
Yeah, I wouldn't
very, very
fresh off the boat.
But if someone comes from the West, then it's different. I'm sure she would be able to judge or prepare him for.
Yes, but this has to be someone that she wants to marry, not just anybody, any prospectus that comes and wants to ask for her hand. Not just anybody. This is somebody that you want to marry and have a contract with. It's not everybody's business.
Because that's what she reads in the letter. Just to mention, she's saying, do I have to mention this to any potential suitor? And I guess in that context, it could just be somebody just inquiring.
Not just
inquiring and maybe interested. It's very personal.
True. I think that we've got a couple of issues also. I'm sure she is going to know someone before marriage, and knowing him, because she came, sounds like it's not purely arranged and whatever. She would be able, and it's her job, to prepare him, to make him understand, and I'm sure he would. Depends on how much they love each other. These are all important issues related to the matter. So probably she would be able to explain or to prepare him for this, rather than abrupt decision or suddenly she tell him he proposed. I don't think the case is as difficult as it is. There are ways of introducing him to this or to her scenario.
I'd agree.
You would agree with that?
I would, but I just think it's important. I think before she gets married, she needs some psychological help. I know that sounds like a cliche, but just to make sure she's ready. She's been through some trauma. Is there anything she wants to air out before she goes into this?
One more thing before we finish. I know it sounds unfair. It might have sounded unfair on her. She probably would say, "Why is me? Why is that?" The answer is simple. I mean, in life, the amount of trouble, torture, suffering probably give us extra reward and thawab. So this is all going to be appreciated, and probably she would have better place in heaven and in the alam al-akhar. So she shouldn't give up, and she should accept that as part of her suffering in this life. In Ziyarat Aminullah, Imam says, Allahumma aj'alni nafsi mutma'innatan biqadarik radiyatan biqada'ik. It's like someone when he got a disease. That doesn't mean that Allah doesn't like him, but he should accept it, and he should understand that this probably will give him extra reward. We have riwayat, hadith from Ahlul Bayt states that in the Day of Judgment, the sufferer would ask for, he would probably say, why didn't I have more suffering? Because of the level he went. He will go on higher level. So this is all appreciated, and probably she will get more rewards and thawab. That probably will enable her to work harder and to accept and to be happier in the...
And have confidence in her decision, in her...
And it's not a matter of fair, it's not unfair on me, because that probably will make her... you know, desperate and sad, miserable and sad.
Yes, I agree.
Obviously, unfortunate as it is, there are times throughout history and throughout civilizations that women can be victims of this type of behavior. I was wondering if there's anything from the history of Islam where the Prophet or the Imam have spoken about, you know, victims of this type of crime to they're nothing to be ashamed of, or something, you know, something about this type of behavior.
There are encouragement of marrying the ladies who has no partners, ladies who has no parents. The Imam used to bring to discourage slavery, to bring the mawali, the slaves, and he freed them and he teaches them, and we had so many of those.
Widows, became, you have examples of widows,
became companion of the Prophet, of the Imam, best student, the widow. All of the Prophet wives were widows, and only Aisha was the only virgin who the Prophet والسلام, got married to. So always we have encouragement in general for fi'l al-khair, and clearly one of the best deeds is to to do something with someone who's been oppressed or been life was unfair to him. So there is no question behind that. It's the best thing.
There's nothing negative on a scale.
It's so many positive. It's the opposite way. So many positive.
Well, look at what's going on now. Or previously in countries in Bosnia where so many Muslim women were raped, and other countries in the world, these atrocities have happened. But, you know, Islam is a loving and fair religion. We don't turn our backs on people that have gone through hardship. It's not what we do.
Because it's like what you mentioned, that in the world, not just in the past, but actually even in this day and time, there's politics abroad in different countries, but these women are victims of this kind of crazy behavior from, well, beasts. You know, so we should have,
and we've got to acknowledge that this happens to males as well. That maybe not be mentioned, that isn't as mentioned in the Muslim community because it's still a taboo.
It's even more of a taboo, right?
Exactly, but we have to just get rid of this shame and this feeling of guilt and this feeling of your damaged goods. It has to culturally come out of people's minds, inshallah. We've got to remember why we're here in the first place. So I think she should walk with her head high, inshallah, pray on it, get some counselling and see what works for her, inshallah.
I think religiously, the oppressor or the raper, he would be probably he should have the guilt feeling, and he should probably feel ashamed of what he did. And it happened so many times. People came a few years later and they get this guilt feeling, make them, you know, always feel bad. While with her, as she said, she shouldn't feel that way, and in fact, she should have a new page. And these things happen to everyone. Some people, their house got, you know, fire or bomb or whatever. Same scenario, or a disease or illness. Bala, ibtila, you know.
So can I just ask you, because especially if the person is in the community and we know we're not saying we know this person, but there's incidences where there's evidence to say that this person carries out this act. They're an abuser, for example.
Okay.
What is the point? Because we've had this in our community before where someone was found to behave in this manner and the police took charge of it. But the community really tried to keep it a secret. What should the punishment be in a situation like this? I'm aware that you need witnesses, etc. But what should be the deterrent, or to tell families not to keep this behaviour a secret? Because sometimes it can happen in families as well.
It all depends on the person, whether he denied, whether he accepted, whether he regretted. We can't really have a judgmental thing. It all depends. Always in Islam, there is a call for problems to be resolved in private circumstances, because there is a discourage for the fahisha, على أن لا تشيع الفاحشة. The bad reputation, the bad stories should be kept as private as possible, because the more open these things become, the more people will probably try to repeat. That doesn't mean that we encourage the oppressor or the raper, and by doing so, no. At some stages, if he insists and if he thinks that he hasn't done it, no, we need to warn the society. Everyone should be aware in order not to get into the same dangerous person. So it all depends. But if he regretted, if he had an accident, or this all depends on how.
See, that personally upsets me, because
It should be
because
it should be just convicted, just be adopted.
Because, sister, how about if he regrets and he wants to open a new page and become religious?
How does that?
Shouldn't we give him the chance?
Just say that happened to me. I'm not going to get that time back or what I've lost back. It's very nice that he feels regretful and he gets a second chance. But what about my scars? I'm just using devil's advocate here. Why are we so, he regrets and repents? This is a serious thing.
So what shall he do?
I think he should be killed.
I was going to say.
He should be killed.
For some crimes, isn't it? I thought that it would have to be that he could be regretful after his punishment, whatever the punishment is.
I think he needs to be.
But he must be. If it's some serious crime, that it must be punishment. It must be.
Punishment. It all depends on the crime, but always there is a call for peace and forgiveness, and to start a new page. It all depends on him and on her, on what has happened, on what does he think. I agree with you. There are some.
This type of crime is too serious, though. For
yeah, but how about if he was ill? Most of those people.
What do you mean, mental illness?
Yes, or psychological.
Then he
Most of those people are not normal. I don't think someone normal will rape a girl at 12 years old.
But that's an excuse that a lot of these people say in courts. I lost my mind, it was temporary insanity. No, it wasn't temporary insanity. You need a psychologist to check to see if you've lost your mind.
But would you think someone normal who will rape a 12 years old girl, unless if he's got something wrong somewhere?
So he should survive and live a life of second chances?
He needs to be institutionalized and to get help.
He needs to be locked up and have help.
To locked up in a hospital then.
This is if he's dangerous.
A secure unit.
Yes.
It's a very difficult decision, and for a scholar, always we ask for peace, for forgiveness, for islah, for repentance.
Feeling angry. I'm feeling so
You have
angry.
the right to feel angry. Even myself, we all feel angry.
I'm angry.
But the actions shouldn't be based on anger. Although وَلَكُمْ فِي الْقَصَاص حَيَاةٌ يَا أُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ. The life depends on punishment. Quran says so. So I agree with you up to a certain extent. But it all depends. It all depends on the circumstances, on the crime, on the forgiveness, on the repentance, on whether there is a regret, whether he does it once, twice, 3 times.
I just feel like males always get a better sympathy here.
You are absolutely right, but in the West now, I mean, I'm talking from my experience from this marital problems, I think males are oppressed.
We'll discuss that.
In the East, in the Middle East, there is such a thing. But in the West, I think it's the opposite, because now the female are misusing the I mean, I had so many poor husbands phone me crying because their house has been taken by the husband, and been thrown away, and his children also been taken. So
hijacking. We're hijacking things.
Well, I hope that because we're coming towards the end of the show, I hope, pray, inshallah, that the sister will find a resolution in the challenges ahead, that Allah will make a way for her. And pray that the individual that harmed her is dealt with punishment. Yeah, is punished for the actions.
Don't get worried about punishment. Allah.
Yes, indeed. And I really thank you, Said, for your time and for your wise words. And Sister Ruby, as always, I thank you for your input. It's been excellent today. And thank you for staying with us for the duration of It Takes Two. Hope to see you next time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu.
Do you need some relationship advice? Do you have marital problems or questions? Perhaps you want to get married and you have questions for us. Please send your thoughts or questions to ittakes2@sophiatv.com.